The song Jalem Jalem, translated as I Traveled, is the national anthem of the Gypsy people, who 1,000 years ago began their migration from India towards the west. After many centuries, these mysterious nomads reached Europe from the Near East, across the Bosporus and the Dardanelles. According to Persian and Arabic sources, Roma are descended from the legendary Luris, whereas contemporary historic research shows that Roma originate from northwest India along the river Ganges. These freedom-loving and cheerful wanderers were always reluctant to integrate into mainstream society. Traveling from country to country in their colorful wagons, the wheel remains their symbol. Dark-skinned, inclined towards music and entertainment, disinclined towards weapons and warfare, the Roma shunned bowing to state authorities. They kept to themselves and their traditions, living in smaller groups or tribes. They respected their chiefs or dukes, whose symbol of honor was a small axe, while the customs were preserved by a respected matron, the Gypsy mother. For the most part, this lifestyle remains unchanged until this day, even in such places where they had stopped their wagons and settled permanently, mainly in Eastern Europe. Gypsy have no political structure. They have no memory of their homeland, and they have no homeland, but they share a deep awareness of their singular nature and the affinity of their dialects, their unique language and culture. One of their most remarkable attributes is their firm devotion to the Romani community. They call themselves Gypsy, Roma, or Romani. The word Rom, or Manush, means man, the implication being that Roma do not belong to any specific people or nation, but to mankind as such. Scattered across the globe, Roma affirm this rather romantic ethnic notion. The Greeks called them Athinganos. Other European nations adopted and adapted the word. Although Gypsy did not perceive it to be offensive, nowadays the word connotes a racial slur and is considered politically incorrect. For a long time, Europeans erroneously believed that the Gypsies' country of origin was Egypt, so they called them Gitanos in Spain, Gypsies in England, and Yedjupi on the eastern shore of the Adriatic Sea. The name of one of the first Croatian Renaissance plays is Yedjupka, named after a Gypsy fortune teller. Gypsy women became famous for their skilled fortune-telling. This is no coincidence, as the ancient Romani religion is based on the supernatural, the conflict between good and evil spirits. Eventually, Romani began to adopt the religions of the countries where they had settled. Today, many Roma are Muslims, or Catholic, or Orthodox Christians. Gypsies often invoked suspicion and mistrust among the domestic population. They were regularly and most unjustly accused of being thieves and swindlers, unreliable horse traders. They earned their living as stock traders, blacksmiths, tinkers, goldsmiths, miners, and even farmers. Gypsy women were considered fickle and frivolous. The character of Carmen in George Bizet's famous opera became a symbol of their alleged untamed and whimsical nature. Gypsy music had a powerful influence on many classical composers, such as Liszt, Brahms, Dvorak, Rachmaninoff, Bartók or Verdi. Roma play a part in European and world literature, either as characters in works such as The Little Gypsy Girl by Miguel Cervantes or 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, or as writers such as Budai Deleanu, the author of the famous Romanian epic poem Tiganiada, the Gypsies' Saga. Roma also have their own autochthonous oral literary heritage. It consists of lyrics, myths, legends, sagas, and fairy tales. Even before World War II, Gypsy were maltreated in Europe. However, the persecution reached an unprecedented peak during the time of Nazi violence that spread from Germany to all other occupied countries. The monstrous Nazi design of creating a pure, perfect Aryan race proved fatal not only for the Jewish population, but also Roma, Slavs, and all those who were mentally and physically handicapped. Roma were subjected to violence, imprisonment, and genocide during the Holocaust. They were murdered in concentration camps. Many of them were subjected to experiments performed by the deranged Dr. Mengele, whose gruesome practices had only one outcome for the victim: death. This is a story about Hajrija Imeri-Mihaljic, the story of the only Gypsy woman ever to be recognized as righteous among the nations, began in 1941 in Serbia. In April 1941, Serbia adopted racial laws, equaling Roma with Jews. Luckily for many Gypsy, in May, Berlin issued a command whereby only those Gypsy who were drifters were to be arrested and imprisoned, while those who were permanently settled were to be left alone. By the end of World War II, almost all Belgrade Roma were exterminated. The only survivors were Roma in rural Serbian areas.
עכשיו אני אספר לך מי זאת הייתה העירייה. היה לה פנים עגולות, עיניים גדולות וחומות, שערות שחורות היו לה עם מטפחת על הראש, פעם היא הלכה ככה ופעם ככה. היא הייתה אישה נמוכת קומה, שחורה, אישה שאז אני הכרתי אותה כבת 35, והיא הייתה אישה מקסימה שהיא טיפלה בי 5 שנים. אני גדלתי אצלה.
It was December 27th, 1940. The Jewish family of Bukitsa and Blagoje Achevich had a very good reason to feel happy. Their daughter was born. According to Sephardic tradition, they name her Esther. Another person present when Esther is born is the Gypsy Hajrija. She was already familiar with Esther's family, as she was their housekeeper for several years before Esther was born. In 1941, the Nazis marched through Yugoslavia. Jews from Kosovo flee to Albania, the only country in a ravaged Europe that protected the Jews during the Holocaust. In 1942, Jews are told that the Germans have left and that they can return to their homes. A majority of them does return. The Germans did indeed leave, but German allies, the Serbian Chetniks, arrest all Jews, imprisoning them at a concentration camp in Kosovska Mitrovica. The camp itself is situated right in the middle of the city, near a bridge, underneath which is a river separating the city in two.
מהמקום הזה, במיטרוביצה, אספו את כל האנשים, בעיקר אספו את האנשים הזקנים, שמכאן הובילו אותם למחנות, והאנשים הצעירים, חלק ברחו וחלק הלכו לפרטיזנים. משם הזקנים שהיו כאן הלכו חלק לאושוויץ וחלק לכל מיני מקומות.
Most of them are then sent to another camp, Sajmište, in Belgrade, Serbia. No one ever came back home from Belgrade.
העירייה הייתה עובדת אצל סבתא שלי. היא הייתה באה לנקות, לבשל, כל מה שהיה צריך ודרוש. אז סבתי ימצא אותה כמו הבת שלה.
Gypsy Hajrija fears that something terrible is about to occur to her Jewish friends. Along with her 5 children, she enters the concentration camp. This is where she finds Esther being taken care of by her grandmother. The grandmother immediately tells Hajrija, "God only knows what will happen to us. I am old. It doesn't matter what happens to me, but this little child has to live. You have many children. One more won't be too much for you. If someone from our family survives, they will come for Esther. And if not, please, let her grow up alongside your children. Raise her as you would your own children. When she grows up, tell her who her parents and grandparents were." With tears streaming down her face, the grandmother hands over her little granddaughter to Hajrija, who manages to leave the camp with Esther without anyone noticing.
והיא כבר החליטה שאני שלה, כולי שלה.
For Esther, a new kind of life is about to begin. Hajrija immediately transforms her into a gypsy. She learns the gypsy language, and she grows up alongside Hajrija's children. She grows up never knowing there was a war, that she had a different mother, a different home, a different language. She grows up believing that Hajrija was indeed her mother.
Bilo je meni odlično, puno dece. Mi smo pravili igračke od svake stvari, kašike, čaše, šta se imalo tamo. I moj jezik je bio ciganski. Oj mordjalče pidu anenu ke dikun ki u Španje. O moj djalče pidu anenu ke dikun ki u Španje.
The war ends. Hajrija looks to all sides, trying to find anyone left from Esther's family. Unfortunately, Hajrija never finds anyone left among the living. She decides to honor the promise given to Esther's grandmother. Hajrija tells little Esther the following: "Your real name is not Miradja, it is Esther. You are not a gypsy, you are Jewish. Your grandmother had the same name as you, Esther Bahar. Your mother's name is Bukitsa Bahar, and your father's name is Blagoye. I am not your real mother, but I love you the same as if I was." Esther would have probably remained with Hajrija all of her life, if it wasn't for a dispute between Hajrija's husband and her neighbor over a piece of property. The neighbor, accusing Hajrija's husband, told the police that Hajrija stole a Jewish child. The police then inform Yosif Josipovich, the representative of the Jewish community in Pristina. Hajrija tells the police the entire story of the little Jewish girl. In disbelief and dismay, Hajrija and her children watch as the police take away Esther, placing her in an orphanage for Jewish children in Belgrade. At the orphanage, they clean and dress Esther, giving her a new set of clothing and shoes, placing food in front of her. Esther refuses to sit at the table. She refuses to eat. She did not understand anyone, as the Gypsy language was the only language she knew how to speak. She continuously thought about Hajrija and her children, whom she felt were her brothers and sisters. The staff at the orphanage did not know what to do. Among them was one teacher who was mildly familiar with the Gypsy language. They send her to attempt to communicate with Esther. It did not go over smoothly or quickly, but after a few days of trying, Esther begins to communicate with her.
אז קופצת איזו אישה, קשה לי. אז היא אומרת, רק רגע, תראי, אני רוצה לשאול אותך משהו, יהיה לך טוב פה, תראי כמה אנחנו אוהבים אותך. אז היא התחילה לשאול אותי, את יודעת איך קוראים לך, היא אומרת? אז אני אומרת לה, קוראים לה מורדיה, אבל פעם קראו לי אסתר. איך קראו לאמא שלך? אז אני אומרת לאמא שלי, קראו יפה, אבל אמא שלי לא בחיים, כאילו נהרגה, ולאבא שלך, אז אני אומרת לאבא שלי קראו בלגויה. לסבתא שלי קראו אסתר, לסבא שלי קראו משה בחר.
The teacher nearly faints.
היא התעלפה, אני בוכה, מטפלות כבר לא יודעות מה לעשות, לטפל בי או לטפל באישה הזאת. מה היא פתאום התעלפה? בוקיצה, מה קרה לך? מה פתאום הרגשת לא טוב וזה? היא אומרת, אתם לא יודעים מה שקרה לי עכשיו. מצאתי את הבת שלי.
The entire orphanage was thrilled. Everyone was jovial and excited that a mother managed to find her child. Everyone, of course, except for Esther. She could not accept the fact that this new person was her mother. Esther felt that she already had a mother, and her name was Hajrija. The more they talked about her real mother, the more she wanted to be taken back to Hajrija. Meanwhile, in the village of Ada in Kosovo, a different kind of a drama was unraveling. Hajrija, who loved Esther as her own, could not stay put. She didn't know if Esther was taken to a prison in Belgrade or somewhere else. Hajrija somehow finds out that Esther was taken to an orphanage in Belgrade, in the street of Visoki Stefan No. 4.
Kad je moja mama pitala Hajriju kako si stigla ovde, kaže ona, nisam imala dovoljno para, malo sam sa autobus I dosta sam išla peške.
The encounter between Miradja and Esther was incredibly touching, especially when Miradja found that Esther had found her real mother. The three of them hugged and cried, overwhelmed by emotions. Hajrija returned safely to Kosovo.
Bila je sretna da je vidjela mene i mamu i ona obećala da neće više da se muči, da ja nisam sa njom.
Esther found it hard to accept the fact that she had another mother. She missed Hajrija constantly. Still, to this day, when she thinks of her mother, she thinks of the gypsy, Hajrija.
ואז החליטו, אמא שלי בינתיים ניסה לבעל שני, לאדם גם שאיבד את כל המשפחה, את האישה ואת הילדים, והוא נשאר ממש לבד. אז הם התאחדו ביחד, הוא גם עבד בדום הזה.
Esther missed Hajrija very much. She even wrote several poems for Hajrija. Esther unfortunately never did find out if Hajrija ever received them. Esther and Bukitsa moved to Israel.
כשהחיים היו לנו שם מאוד קשים, ושכחתי לספר שהבעל השני של אמי, כעבור שנתיים שהיינו בארץ, הוא רכב על איזה פרידה וזה נפל, ותוך 24 שעות מת, היה לו שטף דם במוח ונגמר. שוב אמא שלי נשארה לבד, ושוב אני התומכת שלה במקום שהיא תהיה התומכת שלי.
Life went on as it does. Esther remained with her biological mother, but the two of them never did become as close as Esther did with Hajrija. Esther also wrote many letters from Israel to Hajrija. Unfortunately, those letters too never came back with an answer.
הייתי הולכת איתה, שוטפת רצפות, מרימה כל מיני דברים, עד שיום אחד באמת מאס עליי, והחלטתי שאני לא רוצה לחיות חיים כאלה. הייתי ילדה בת 14.
Esther asked her mother if she ever looked for her. Her mother said that she was told that all the Jews from their land were killed. Esther never fully accepts her biological mother as her real mother. Soon, after moving to Israel, she enters a kibbutz, beginning a new life for herself, by herself. She never fully develops an emotional connection with her biological mother.
כן, זה עצוב לי מאוד שאמא שלי הייתה כך.
אני חושב שהייתה אישה די מורכבת ולא קלה. וזה לא מפליא כשהם מבינים את כל הדברים שהיא עברה בחיים שלה. היא נפטרה יחסית צעירה. אני יודע שלאמא שלי היו איתה תמיד יחסים מורכבים.
Esther marries and gives birth to 3 children. Her biological mother passes away. Yad Vashem begins to gather information about the righteous on the territories of the former Yugoslavia.
Nju sam intervjuisala kao što se intervjuise ostale i kad mi ona ispričala svoju priču, ta njena priča me jako dirnula iz nekoliko razloga. U prvom redu vidjela sam svu tragediju onih survivora koji su bili kao djeca sakriveni kod dobrih ljudi. I ti dobri ljudi su postali kao član familije i više, mislim, kako su u stvari oduzeli od dece mogućnost da vole svoju biološku majku. Kako je morala da odluči kod koje majke da bude i da svoju ljubav nekako podijeli.
אז העירייה נשארה לי בלב. למה? כי גדלתי אצלה את הילדות איך שנולדתי, אז בשבילי זאת הייתה אימא, והיה לי קשה להתרגל לאימא אחרת.
Vidjela sam da je Hajrija u stvari najbolji kandidat da se nju prizna kao pravednicu među narodima. Ali ne može se priznati nekoga kad ne znaš njegovo puno ime. A Esther nije znala Hajrijinu, niti je znala tačno njeno prezime, niti je znala kako se zove selo u kojem je ona bila. A bez tih najosnovnijih podataka ne može se predložiti nekoga na komisiju. Obratila sam se čak policiji u Kosovskoj Mitrovici da vide da li možda imaju neki protokol, neki trag. I tako u tim traganjima jednog dana, tamo gdje sam stanovala, bila je jedna radnja u kojoj je radio jedan čovjek iz Prištine. I ja njemu pričam kako tragam za tim. Pa on meni kaže, pa šta tako tražiš po cijelom svetu? Moj tata je taj čovjek koji je sa policijom došao u selo da odvede Esteru u jevrejski dom u Beogradu. I njegov tata, Josifović, bio je još živ u to vrijeme. On je dao izjavu da se Hajrija zvala Imeri i da se selo u kojem je Estera bila zove Ade.
After 65 years, Esther, accompanied by her son, comes to Belgrade, Serbia. She visits the Jewish orphanage, a place where she spent 3 years of her life.
הזיכרונות קשים מאוד, אבל צריך להתגבר וצריך להמשיך את החיים. אחד החדרים פה בטח היה גם שלי עם החברות שלי. בוא ירון, אני אראה לך איפה אני גדלתי 3 שנים לאחר שהביאו אותי מהצועניה, ושלא תשכח את זה אף פעם ותמיד תזכור. אני באתי פה, אני הכרתי ילדים, הכרתי בני אדם, כי אני גדלתי בין צוענים ולא ידעתי מה זה חברים, חברות. ידעתי שאני גדלה במשפחה עם ילדים קטנים, משחקת, לא משחקת, וזה מה שהיה לי בחיים. ופתאום נוצרה פה חברות באו אליי, אני הלכתי אליהם. היה לי נחמד, התחיל להיות נחמד.
And following a 70-year absence, Esther and her son come to Kosovo. She visits a cemetery where most of her family members are buried. Esther visits Prizren, where she meets other members of her family. Together, they visit the city cemetery.
Ajde, tetka, da znaš da sam došla.
She visits Mitrovica, the city in which she was born and where her grandmother's house still stands.
אני היום נמצאת במיטרוביצה, על יד הבית של סבתא וסבא שלי, שרק גשר עובר ביניהם, וחבל שבצד השני המקום סגור, ואני תקווה שפעם יפתחו את הגשר ויחיו כולם באחווה ובשלום.
Esther visits the ground where the concentration camp stood, a place where she was saved by the gypsy named Hajrija. Hajrija Imeri-Mihaljic, a member of a people to whom constant travel is a natural state, and whose anthem carries the name Jelem, Jelem, I traveled, is buried somewhere in Kosovo. No one knows where. No one even remembers what she looked like. No one except Esther Levy, who by her own admission, every night before falling asleep, clings to every memory and image of her beloved Hajrija.
זו העירייה שאני הכרתי, העירייה שלי.
Some